Welcome to my channel. We live in a time where comfort is everywhere. With a single tap, food is delivered to our door. With a single click, entertainment is in our hands. We can avoid almost anything that feels uncomfortable. And while that might sound like progress, there's a hidden cost. Our brains are slowly being trained to avoid difficulty. But here's the thing, life doesn't reward what's easy. Life rewards those who dare to push through discomfort. Every great leader, every great innovator, every person who's left a mark on this world has one thing in common: they trained their brain to do hard things. Because the brain works like a muscle. If you challenge it, it grows stronger. If you stretch it, it adapts. But if you always choose what's comfortable, the brain gets weaker, lazier, and less capable of handling real challenges. Think about it, no one remembers the person who quit when it got tough. We remember those who kept going when everything in them said stop. And that resilience, that strength, doesn't come naturally. It comes from training, from teaching your brain over and over again that you are capable of more than you think. And today, that's what we're going to talk about: how to train your brain to do hard things so you can unlock a life of purpose, resilience, and unstoppable growth. Discomfort is the birthplace of growth. We all want to improve, to become stronger, wiser, more resilient, and more successful. But the paradox is this: the very thing we seek cannot be found in comfort. Comfort feels safe, but it does not challenge us. It keeps us exactly where we are. Growth, on the other hand, requires friction. It requires resistance. Just like a seed must push through the dirt to become a tree, or a muscle must tear under pressure to become stronger, our minds and our lives only evolve when we step into discomfort. Think about the people you admire the most. They are not remembered because life was easy for them. They are remembered because they faced adversity, because they endured difficulty, and because they did not shy away from what was hard. Discomfort became their teacher. It became the crucible in which their character was forged. And yet, most of us spend our lives avoiding discomfort. We choose convenience over challenge. We run from pain. We hide from risk. And by doing so, we rob ourselves of the very experiences that could shape us into the best version of ourselves. When you step into discomfort, something remarkable happens. Your brain learns to adapt. Your nervous system recalibrates. What once felt terrifying begins to feel normal. The unknown becomes familiar. The challenge that once intimidated you becomes your new standard. This is how human beings evolve. We are not born with resilience. We are not born with unshakable confidence. These are earned traits, earned by repeatedly facing discomfort until it becomes the soil in which growth naturally occurs. Take the gym as an example. The first time you lift a heavy weight, your muscles ache. You feel weak. You may even want to quit. But if you keep showing up, if you keep embracing the discomfort, something begins to change. The pain doesn't vanish, but your body grows stronger. Your capacity expands. That same principle applies to your brain, your career, your relationships, and your leadership. Every time you step into discomfort, you are signaling to yourself that you are capable of more. You are building evidence of your strength, and slowly your identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone who avoids challenge and start believing you are someone who thrives in it. The reason discomfort is so powerful is because it reveals the truth about who we are. In moments of ease, anyone can smile, anyone can feel confident, anyone can appear strong. But in moments of difficulty, in the face of setbacks, in the pressure of uncertainty, that is where our real character is exposed. That is where we discover what we are truly made of. And once you've walked through that fire, you never look at yourself the same way again. You carry a deeper confidence, a quiet strength, because you've proven to yourself that you can handle what once felt impossible. Most people misunderstand discomfort. They see it as something to avoid, when in reality it is a signal that you're in the right place. When you feel nervous before a presentation, it means you're stepping into growth. When you struggle to learn a new skill, it means you're pushing your brain into new territory. When you face rejection, it means you're daring to try. Discomfort is not a sign of weakness. It is proof of progress. It is the compass pointing you toward where you need to go. The greatest danger is not failure. The greatest danger is comfort. Because comfort convinces us to settle. Comfort whispers that we are fine where we are. Comfort tells us not to try, not to risk, not to dream too big. And little by little, comfort robs us of our potential. It dulls our edge. It keeps us small. But when you embrace discomfort, you break that cycle. You remind yourself that life is not meant to be easy. It is meant to be meaningful. And meaning is always found on the other side of struggle. Discomfort builds resilience. It shapes perspective. It prepares you for life's inevitable challenges. Because life will not always be easy. There will be setbacks, failures, heartbreaks, and losses. And when those moments come, comfort will not prepare you. Only discomfort will. Only the times you chose to face difficulty will give you the strength to endure and keep moving forward. If you want to grow, you must stop asking, how can I make this easier? And start asking, how can I become stronger? The goal is not to remove the challenge, but to rise to meet it. The goal is not to avoid discomfort, but to embrace it as the very process that transforms you. Because when you train your brain to lean into what is uncomfortable, you begin to discover the incredible capacity you've had all along. Your brain is a muscle. Train it through challenge. When we think about growth, most of us imagine the physical body, the hours spent in a gym, the sweat, the weight lifted. We easily accept that our muscles only grow when they are pushed beyond their comfort zone, but we rarely apply the same principle to our minds. The truth is, your brain operates by the very same laws. If it is never tested, it will never grow. If it is not challenged, it will not adapt. Just like a muscle, your brain requires resistance, pressure, and strain to unlock its hidden capacity. Every time you attempt something difficult, you are training your brain. When you force yourself to focus even when distracted, you are building mental stamina. When you confront a fear instead of running away, you are strengthening neural pathways of courage. When you commit to a goal and refuse to quit in the face of setbacks, you are teaching your brain that perseverance is your default. The more you practice this, the stronger these mental muscles become. Eventually, tasks that once felt overwhelming begin to feel natural. Your tolerance for difficulty expands. Your ability to endure pressure increases. Think of how athletes prepare for the Olympics. They don't train for what is easy. They deliberately place their bodies under stress, often to the point of pain, because they know that only through repeated challenge will they reach world-class performance. The brain requires the same intentional training. If you only feed it comfort, it becomes lazy. If you only seek what is familiar, it becomes rigid. If you never stretch it beyond what it already knows, it stays stuck in mediocrity. But when you deliberately expose it to discomfort, when you make it wrestle with hard problems, when you train it to sit with uncertainty, it transforms into a sharper, more resilient, more powerful organ. Neuroscience even backs this up. Every time you face a new challenge, your brain creates new connections. Neurons fire, synapses strengthen, and your capacity for future challenges grows. This process, called neuroplasticity, is the scientific proof that your brain is not fixed. It is adaptable. It can be reshaped by your habits, your choices, your willingness to take on difficulty. The more you test it, the more it rewires itself to handle greater stress, greater responsibility, greater ambition. In other words, what feels impossible today could become second nature tomorrow, if only you're willing to train your brain the same way an athlete trains their body. But here's the catch. Most people don't want to put their brain under pressure. They avoid the difficult conversation because it feels awkward. They don't learn the new skill because it feels frustrating. They quit the project when it demands too much effort. In doing so, they keep their brain weak. They choose mental atrophy over mental growth. And then they wonder why life feels overwhelming, why every setback knocks them down, why they lack the resilience to keep going. The answer is simple. They never trained their brain. Training the brain requires daily practice. It doesn't happen in one big leap. It happens in small, consistent challenges. Waking up early when you don't want to, finishing the book you promised yourself you'd read, saying no when it would be easier to say yes, having the tough conversation instead of avoiding it. Each time you do this, you're doing the equivalent of a mental push-up. It may not feel like much in the moment, but over time these repetitions compound. Your mind becomes tougher, sharper, more disciplined. Consider leaders who inspire us. They did not simply wake up with an extraordinary ability to endure stress or solve hard problems. They trained for it. They trained their minds through years of decisions, mistakes, failures, and persistence. Every hard moment became another rep in the gym of the brain. That is why they can lead with calm under pressure. That is why they can carry the weight of responsibility that others cannot. They did not avoid challenge. They leaned into it until their brain became conditioned to handle it. The beauty of this truth is that it applies to anyone. You don't have to be born with a special gift. You don't need to inherit talent or genius. You just need the willingness to train. The same way anyone can get stronger in a gym if they show up consistently, anyone can sharpen their brain if they practice doing hard things consistently. Your limits are not fixed. Your intelligence, your resilience, your creativity, they are all expandable if you choose to challenge them. The world today rewards those who have trained their brains. Opportunities go to the people who can think under pressure, adapt quickly, and endure difficulty without breaking. Success doesn't go to the most comfortable, it goes to the most prepared. And preparation is nothing more than the willingness to practice doing what most people avoid. Training your brain through challenge is not just about personal growth. It is about survival, about thriving in a world that will test you whether you're ready or not. Small daily struggles build long-term resilience. We often believe that resilience is born in big moments, in the face of life-changing crises or massive failures. But the truth is, resilience is not something that suddenly appears when life gets tough. It is something that is built slowly, quietly, through the small struggles we face every single day. The way you respond to minor discomforts, small challenges, and everyday obstacles determines how prepared you will be when the bigger storms of life arrive. Think about how a tree grows strong roots. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens because the tree is constantly exposed to the wind, to the rain, to the heat of the sun. Each day, the environment challenges it. And because of these small, repeated struggles, the tree grows deeper roots and a stronger trunk. In the same way, when you take on small struggles intentionally, you are training yourself to withstand bigger ones in the future. You are preparing your mind and spirit to stay firm no matter how hard the storm may be. Consider waking up earlier than you want to. It's a small struggle, but each time you win that battle, you strengthen your discipline. Or think about finishing a workout when you're tired and want to quit. That small choice builds your mental stamina. Even doing something as simple as turning off distractions to finish the work you promised yourself you would do is a way of building resilience. These moments may not feel life-changing in the moment, but they are like deposits in a bank. Each small act of discipline, each small struggle you embrace, adds up over time to create a reserve of strength you can draw upon when you need it most. The problem many of us face is that we want resilience without the training. We want to be strong when life gets tough, but we avoid the small challenges that prepare us for those moments. We hit snooze instead of waking up early. We procrastinate instead of taking action. We avoid discomfort instead of leaning into it. And because of this, when real adversity comes, we are caught unprepared. We break under pressure not because we are weak by nature, but because we never trained ourselves through the small, daily struggles that make us strong. The beauty of small struggles is that they are always available. Every single day offers opportunities to build resilience. You don't have to wait for a life crisis to test your strength. You can build it today in the choices you make right now. The choice to put in the work when no one is watching. The choice to stay calm when frustration rises. The choice to push through when your mind says quit. Every one of these small battles matters. They might feel insignificant, but they are the foundation upon which unshakable resilience is built. Resilience is not about avoiding failure. It is about facing failure and learning how to recover. And recovery is faster, easier, and more natural for those who have trained themselves in small struggles. If you've built the habit of getting back up after small setbacks, you'll have the mental wiring to get back up after big ones. If you've practiced patience in everyday inconveniences, you'll have the patience to endure real hardships. If you've trained yourself to push through discomfort in minor ways, you'll be able to push through when the discomfort becomes overwhelming. This is why discipline and resilience are so closely linked. Discipline is nothing more than choosing the small struggle on purpose. Choosing to do the thing that is uncomfortable today, so that tomorrow you are stronger. And the more you choose discipline, the more resilient you become. You don't crumble at the first sign of resistance because your mind has already been conditioned to handle it. You've built endurance through repetition. Think of a marathon runner. They don't build their endurance by running a marathon on day 1. They build it by running a mile, then 2, then 5, then 10. Each small increase in difficulty conditions their body and mind to go further. By the time they reach the marathon, they are ready because the small struggles have prepared them for the big one. Your life works the same way. By embracing the daily struggles, big or small, you are conditioning yourself for whatever challenges lie ahead. Resilience is a long-term game. It cannot be built overnight, but it can be built every day. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, every time you face something uncomfortable, every time you endure something difficult without giving up, you are laying bricks. And over time, those bricks create a fortress of resilience that nothing can easily tear down. This is why small daily struggles matter. They may not seem dramatic or inspiring, but they are the most practical way to prepare yourself for the future. Discipline rewires your mind for strength. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think it's about restriction, about saying no to fun, about living a rigid and joyless life. But discipline is not about punishment. It is about training. It is about deliberately choosing actions that align with your goals instead of giving into impulses that pull you away from them. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. And the power of discipline is not just in what it allows you to achieve, but in how it rewires your mind to become stronger with every choice you make. When you practice discipline, you are teaching your brain that it can overcome temptation. You are teaching yourself that emotions and impulses do not control you, you control them. Every time you wake up when the alarm goes off, instead of hitting snooze, you're sending a message to your brain, I am in charge. Every time you go to the gym, even when you don't feel like it, you're reinforcing a belief, my actions are stronger than my feelings. Every time you stay focused on work instead of scrolling endlessly, you're rewiring your brain to understand that purpose matters more than distraction. These small acts may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time, they transform how you see yourself. Discipline builds identity. At first, it feels like effort, like resistance, like a battle against yourself. But eventually, it becomes who you are. You stop thinking of yourself as someone who quits and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. You stop identifying as someone who avoids discomfort and start believing you are someone who embraces it. This shift in identity is powerful, because once you believe you are disciplined, you act disciplined without even thinking. It becomes second nature. The reason discipline rewires the mind for strength is because it creates consistency. Strength is never built in a single moment. It is built through repetition. Discipline gives you the ability to show up again and again even when motivation is gone. Motivation is fleeting, but discipline is steady. Motivation depends on how you feel in the moment, but discipline depends on the commitment you made to yourself long before the moment arrived. And the more you practice that consistency, the more your brain adapts. It learns that following through is normal, not extraordinary. It learns that persistence is the default, not the exception. Without discipline, the brain becomes weak. It becomes a prisoner of convenience, a slave to feelings, a follower of every fleeting desire. It chooses the easy path again and again until the idea of doing something hard feels impossible. That is why so many people struggle to start. They have trained their brains to always choose the easy way. So when life demands strength, they don't have it. But the good news is discipline can be built. No matter how many times you've quit in the past, no matter how many times you've taken the easy route, you can start today by choosing differently. And with each choice, your brain begins to change. Discipline also frees you. At first, it may feel like you're giving something up. But over time, you realize you're gaining far more. By disciplining yourself to eat healthy, you gain energy and confidence. By disciplining yourself to manage your time, you gain freedom to do what matters. By disciplining yourself to stay consistent with your work, you gain opportunities that others miss. What felt like restriction in the moment becomes liberation in the long run. Discipline is the tool that allows you to create the life you actually want, instead of being trapped by short-term desires. Think about the greatest leaders and achievers in history. None of them succeeded because they always felt motivated. They succeeded because they were disciplined. They wrote when they didn't feel like writing. They trained when they didn't feel like training. They prepared when no one was watching. And over time, their discipline built extraordinary strength. Not just in their skills, but in their minds. They didn't rely on the mood of the day to guide their actions. They relied on their commitment. Every time you choose discipline, you make it easier to choose it again. The first decision is always the hardest, but once you prove to your brain that you can do it, the next decision becomes easier. This creates a cycle. Discipline leads to strength, strength leads to confidence, confidence makes discipline feel natural. And what was once a struggle becomes your normal. And that is how people transform, through the quiet, repeated act of choosing discipline when it would be easier not to. Discipline also teaches patience. In a world that promises instant gratification, discipline forces you to wait, to work, to earn the reward over time, and that waiting builds resilience. It trains your brain to understand that real success, real fulfillment, and real strength are not immediate. They require persistence. They require delayed gratification. They require trust in the process. And by learning to trust that process, your mind grows stronger, calmer, and more focused on the long game. Discipline is not about being perfect. It's not about never slipping or never making mistakes. It's about returning to the path each time you wander. It's about building a pattern of consistency that outweighs the moments of weakness. Over time, the brain learns to prioritize progress over perfection, persistence over quitting. And that is where true strength lies, not in never falling, but in always rising. Hard choices create an easier life. Easy choices create a harder life. This is one of the simplest but most profound truths about human behavior. The path we choose today will determine the kind of life we experience tomorrow. When we take the easy route in the moment, it feels comfortable, it feels safe, it feels rewarding. But in the long run, those easy choices pile up and create a life filled with regret, stress, and limitation. On the other hand, when we consistently choose the harder path, the one that demands effort, sacrifice, and discomfort, we may suffer in the short term, but we create a future of freedom, strength, and fulfillment. Every easy choice we make is a withdrawal from our future. Hitting snooze on the alarm might give you comfort now, but it robs you of discipline and energy later. Eating junk food might feel good in the moment, but it robs you of health and vitality in the future. Avoiding the tough conversation may protect you from discomfort now, but it robs you of stronger relationships later. The bill always comes due. Easy choices never stay easy. They accumulate into difficulty that is far greater than the momentary struggle we avoided. Hard choices, however, are investments. They cost something up front. They demand courage. They demand focus. They demand persistence, but they also pay compound interest. Waking up early to exercise is a hard choice, but it builds health, confidence, and energy that carry you through life. Choosing to save money instead of spending recklessly is a hard choice, but it creates financial freedom later. Taking the time to learn a difficult skill is a hard choice, but it opens doors that would otherwise remain closed. These choices may feel painful now, but they give you a life that is easier in the long run, because you've prepared, strengthened, and equipped yourself to handle whatever comes. This principle shows up everywhere. Students who take the easy route of skipping study sessions often struggle later when exams or real-life responsibilities demand knowledge they never built. Professionals who choose comfort over growth find themselves stuck in jobs that don't fulfill them, wondering why opportunities pass them by. Relationships crumble when people choose avoidance over the difficult but necessary conversations that build trust and intimacy. In every area of life, the equation is the same: easy now equals hard later, hard now equals easier later. What makes hard choices powerful is not just the result they bring, but the person they turn you into along the way. Each hard choice requires strength, and each time you make one, you build more of it. You begin to see yourself differently. You start believing that you can handle more than you thought. The confidence you gain from facing challenges is far more valuable than the temporary relief of avoiding them. And that confidence doesn't just help in one area, it spills over into everything you do. Once you've proven to yourself that you can do something hard, you approach future difficulties with a sense of calm and assurance. Easy choices, in contrast, weaken us. They reinforce the idea that we can't handle difficulty. They build a habit of avoidance, and avoidance compounds. What starts as small neglects, skipping a workout, delaying a task, ignoring a problem, slowly grows into bigger struggles. The person who avoids discomfort today finds themselves overwhelmed tomorrow, not because life is uniquely unfair to them, but because they never practiced the art of choosing the hard path when it mattered most. The reality is that life will always involve struggle. There is no path that avoids pain completely. The question is whether you want the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. One is temporary and constructive, the other is lasting and destructive. The pain of waking up early fades as you build a life of energy and discipline. The pain of exercising fades as you enjoy health and strength. The pain of studying fades as you reap the rewards of knowledge and opportunity. But the pain of regret lingers. It eats away at you long after the moment has passed. It becomes a weight you carry, knowing you could have chosen differently. When you consistently choose hard over easy, you create momentum. At first, it feels unnatural. Your brain resists. It tells you to stay comfortable, to protect yourself from struggle. But once you start choosing hard, something shifts. The hard becomes your new normal. What once felt impossible becomes routine. And the easy life you've built for yourself later doesn't come from avoiding difficulty, but from mastering it. Leaders understand this principle deeply. The leaders we admire are those who consistently chose the harder path. They made sacrifices others weren't willing to make. They endured struggles others avoided. They leaned into the difficult decisions that no one else wanted to face. And because of that, they created lives and legacies that inspire. They did not get there by chasing ease. They got there by embracing challenge. Every day presents you with a choice to take the easy path or the hard path. And though each decision may seem small, together they shape your destiny. If you want to build strength, freedom, and fulfillment, lean into the hard. Choose the discomfort today so you can create the life you want tomorrow. Courage is not the absence of fear, but action despite it. Many people believe that courageous individuals are somehow fearless, that they are wired differently, that they simply don't feel the same anxieties or doubts that the rest of us do. But this is a myth. Every courageous act in history was performed by someone who felt fear deeply. What set them apart was not the absence of that fear, but their decision to move forward anyway. Courage is not about erasing fear. It is about refusing to let fear dictate your choices. Fear is natural. It is part of being human. It is our brain's way of keeping us safe, of protecting us from danger and uncertainty. But fear, left unchecked, becomes a prison. It convinces us to stay where we are. It whispers that trying is too risky, that speaking up is too dangerous, that stepping forward will only lead to pain. And when we listen to that voice, we shrink. We let opportunities slip away. We convince ourselves that an ordinary life is safer than daring to live fully. The role of courage is to break that pattern. Courage steps in when fear wants to hold you back and says, "Yes, I'm afraid, but I'm doing it anyway." Every time you act in the presence of fear, you rewire your brain. You prove to yourself that fear is not fatal. You show your mind that discomfort is survivable. What once felt terrifying becomes manageable, and what was once manageable becomes ordinary. This is how courage compounds. Each act of courage, no matter how small, expands your capacity for the future. The first time you speak up in a meeting, your heart might pound, your voice might shake, but afterward, you realize you survived. The next time it becomes a little easier. The same is true for taking risks, for learning new skills, for standing up for what you believe in. Courage builds through repetition. Courage is also contagious. When you act despite fear, you give permission to others to do the same. History is full of examples where one person's courage sparked a movement. Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat, a simple but courageous act, inspired thousands to rise against injustice. Leaders who step into the unknown, admitting they don't have all the answers but willing to take risks anyway, inspire their teams to do likewise. Courage multiplies when it is visible. And it always begins with one decision: to act in spite of fear rather than be ruled by it. Most people wait for fear to disappear before they act. They say, "When I feel more confident, then I'll take the leap. When I stop being afraid, then I'll pursue the dream." But that moment never comes, because fear doesn't vanish on its own. Confidence is not the prerequisite for courage. Courage is the path to confidence. You act first, while still afraid, and only then does the fear begin to loosen its grip. Only then does confidence begin to grow. Courage also reveals character. It is easy to do what is right when there is no risk involved. It is easy to be brave when the outcome is guaranteed, but true character is exposed in moments when the future is uncertain, when the decision could cost you something, when standing up comes with consequences. That is where courage matters most, because it is in those moments that you prove to yourself and to the world what you truly believe in. The absence of courage leads to a life of regret, opportunities missed, dreams unfulfilled, words left unsaid, all because fear won the battle. Regret lingers longer than fear ever does. Fear lasts for a moment, for a decision, for an experience, but regret stays with you, reminding you of what you didn't do. Courage, on the other hand, leaves you with stories, with growth, with a deeper sense of who you are. You may still feel the fear, but you also feel the pride of knowing you didn't let it control you. Everyday life offers countless opportunities to practice courage. Speaking your mind when it's uncomfortable, standing up for someone when it's unpopular, admitting a mistake when it would be easier to hide it, asking for help when your pride wants you to stay silent. These acts may seem small, but they are training for the bigger challenges that life will inevitably bring. By practicing courage in the little things, you prepare yourself to show up courageously when the stakes are higher. Courage is not about being reckless. It doesn't mean ignoring fear or pretending it isn't there. It means acknowledging the fear, understanding the risk, and choosing to act anyway, because what you stand to gain, or who you stand to become, is worth it. Courage is clarity about what matters more than your fear. It is the voice inside you that says, "Yes, I am afraid, but this is important enough to move forward." Those who live with courage discover a freedom that the fearful never know. They learn that life is not meant to be lived within the confines of safety, but in the pursuit of purpose. They find joy not in the absence of fear, but in the victory over it. And with each victory, they grow stronger, more resilient, more alive. Hope is the quiet strength that whispers, "Try again." When everything around you suggests giving up, it is not loud, not always visible, and often not even rational, but is powerful. Hope has carried people through wars, disasters, heartbreaks, and the darkest moments of human history. It is the belief that tomorrow can be better than today, even when today is unbearable. Hope is what keeps people standing when the weight of despair is pressing them down, and it is what allows humanity to imagine a different future when the present feels unchangeable. What makes hope remarkable is that it thrives in the most unlikely places. You rarely hear someone talk about hope when everything is going well. People don't need to cling to hope when life is easy or predictable. Hope shows up in the hospital waiting room, in the ruins of a disaster, in the silence after a loss. It appears when logic says the odds are too small, when reason says the situation is too far gone, when voices around you are urging surrender. Hope does not deny reality. It does not pretend that pain or hardship don't exist. What it does is insist that even in the middle of pain, there is still a possibility for something new. Hope is not the same as blind optimism. Optimism can sometimes ignore the facts, painting everything with a brush of positivity even when the truth is harsh. Hope, on the other hand, faces the truth fully. It acknowledges the difficulty, the risk, the suffering, and still says, "This is not the end." That is why hope feels so courageous. It chooses to believe in possibilities not because the evidence guarantees them, but because the human spirit cannot survive without them. Hope is rooted not in certainty but in faith in progress, in resilience, in the potential of human beings to adapt, endure, and create. History has shown that hope is often the seed of transformation. Every great movement, every breakthrough, every innovation began with someone who hoped for something different. Civil rights leaders hoped for a world where freedom and equality were possible even when everything around them said it wasn't. Scientists hoped to solve mysteries of the universe long before they had the tools to do so. Communities devastated by war or disaster rebuild because they hold on to hope that life can begin again. Hope is the foundation of change because it allows people to envision something beyond what exists right now. Without that vision, there would be no reason to try, no motivation to act. On a personal level, hope is what allows people to endure struggles that might otherwise crush them. Someone fighting illness needs hope to keep showing up for treatments, to endure the pain, to believe that life is worth fighting for. Someone struggling financially needs hope to keep looking for opportunities, to believe that their situation is not permanent. Hope keeps parents strong for their children when they themselves feel weak. It gives strength to students working against all odds, to immigrants starting from nothing, to dreamers who risk ridicule for pursuing what others cannot yet see. Without hope, despair takes over, and despair has a way of shutting people down, stealing energy, and convincing them that effort is pointless. Hope is also a shared strength. It grows stronger when it is spoken, when it is shared between people, when communities come together around it. One person's hope can become the anchor for another who feels lost. A hopeful leader can carry an entire team through setbacks. A hopeful parent can give courage to a child. A hopeful friend can sit beside someone in grief and help them hold on to the thought that life still holds meaning. Hope is multiplied when it is carried collectively, and it often spreads faster than despair when people witness it lived out in others. There is a quiet discipline to maintaining hope. It is not always a spontaneous feeling, often it is a choice. In the face of difficulties, you have to remind yourself of what is still possible, of what is still worth fighting for. You may have to cultivate habits that feed hope, reading stories of resilience, surrounding yourself with people who encourage rather than discourage, focusing on small wins rather than being consumed by how far you still have to go. Hope requires nourishment, because the world will always provide reasons to abandon it. Without intentionally feeding hope, it can wither in the noise of negativity and fear. Hope also works in small increments. It doesn't always ask you to believe in massive change overnight. Sometimes hope is simply believing you can make it through today, or through the next hour. For someone in deep struggle, the idea of a bright future might feel too distant, too overwhelming. But hope doesn't always have to look like a grand vision. Sometimes it is as small as saying, I can get through this moment. And when you add enough of those moments together, they build into something larger. What makes hope so powerful is that it fuels action. A person without hope won't even try, but a person with hope will find the strength to keep moving, even when it is difficult. Hope keeps the dreamer creating, the fighter enduring, the believer standing. It is not passive, it is active. It pushes people to reach, to try again, to rebuild, to persist when logic says stop. Hope is not waiting idly for things to change. It is believing so strongly in the possibility of change that you act as if it is already on the way. When you choose to do what's hard, you're not just building discipline, you're shaping the kind of person you become. You're proving to yourself that fear doesn't own you, that comfort doesn't control you, that you are capable of more than the limits your mind tries to set. Every time you step into discomfort, you send a signal to your brain, I can handle this. And that belief changes everything. The truth is, greatness is not built in the easy moments. It's built in the struggle, in the challenge, in the fight to keep going when it would be easier to stop. That's where character is forged. That's where leaders are made. That's where ordinary people become extraordinary. So train your brain to do the hard things, not because it's easy, not because it's fun, but because on the other side of hard is everything you've been searching for. Growth, strength, purpose, and the life you were meant to live.